Hi, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel. British company Blackstar asked me if I wanted to review their carry-on line of foldable keyboard controllers and other portable instruments. And to be honest, I was always kind of curious about their 25-key foldable keyboard for synthesizer enthusiasts, so I said yes. So today I'm going to review the foldable controller 25, the foldable controller 49, and the digital wind instrument 2 Pro. And if you think that's interesting, please join me in this video. Here we go. Let's start with the controller I was most curious about, the folding controller 25. All these controllers come in a nice packaging and, as the name implies, they're foldable, reducing the area they occupy by half when folded. The 25-key folding controller is 37 x 25 centimeters, or roughly 15 x 10 inches wide and deep when unfolded, but as its main gimmick it's its kickstand, you'll never use it fully unfolded anyway. The kickstand sits on the back of the control and drum pad section of this device, and it snaps to the enclosure with magnets. With the kickstand, this controller really is reminiscent of classic synthesizers like the Minimoog, and all in all, I really like this design. Here's a quick in-the-bag test. This is a standard backpack and the controller fits in there both folded and unfolded without any problems. But it'll catch much less dust when folded, obviously. On the top of this controller you'll find the power switch, a USB-C connector that's used both for charging the internal battery and as a USB MIDI port, TRS MIDI out, and 3 sockets for controlled voltage or CV connections for pitch, gate and modulation. There's also a connection for a sustain pedal here. Not seen here is the Bluetooth interface, which lets you connect this to other devices wirelessly. The keyboard itself, which snaps to the enclosure with magnets, has 25 keys. These don't have as much key travel space as, for example, the Reface DX here, and they'll emit mechanical noises when playing, but I found them to be responsive, expressive and precise. The keys won't move left and right, so they won't rub against each other. On the upper part of the controller, you'll find pitch and mod ribbons. These are precise and they have a paper textured surface which allows for precise control. There are 4 customizable endless encoders here as well. You can use these to control, for example, filter cutoff frequency or volume or more. These are tight and precise as well. The 8 drum pads are rubbery and snappy. They are also easy enough to press, so you won't move the whole controller when hitting them. The controller also has 15 buttons which are clicky and precise. With these you can switch octaves and transposal keyboard, change the tempo, turn on or off sustain mode, assign CC parameters, switch MIDI channels, turn on or off chord and arpeggiator mode and note holding or latch. There are also play, stop and record buttons for a DAW or sequencer here. Using the shift button lets you access secondary functions, for example on the arpeggiator. Holding shift and pressing one of the piano keys will let you access the function the key is labeled with, for example for entering numbers quickly. There's also a 7-segment LCD which shows you various numbers that are important for understanding what you're working on at the moment. The arpeggiator is another useful feature for electronic musicians. Turn it on and play any chord, and use the latch button to hold that chord, and then tweak the sound on your synth. You can adjust tempo, note length, swing, note order and the octave range to create awesome sounding arpeggios. And last but not least, there's chord mode. Hold the chord button, then play a chord and then release the button. Playing a single key will then transpose the chord you just played. 90s house musicians and power chord aficionados rejoice! All in all, I like the 25 a lot. It's a very nice design, and all the hinges, keys, encoders and buttons are firm and don't move in any direction they're not supposed to move. The keyboard is playable, and the controller neatly fits into a backpack. The battery will last for around 8 hours, and with its Bluetooth connection, it's no problem to connect to an Android or iOS device, creating a quick mobile setup. The street price for this is around 150 euros or dollars, which doesn't seem overpriced for the quality and features you get here, but it's also not exactly cheap. Compared to products like the Akai MPK Mini 25 for example, which is around 80 euros new, this keyboard here has more functions, more connections and more style though. Next, the folding controller 49. This 39x13 cm or 15x5 inch device is targeted at piano and keyboard players. It has ports for a sustain pedal, USB Type-C for charging and MIDI, MIDI TRS out and a power switch. Its internal battery will work for around 8 hours before it needs a recharge. Bluetooth MIDI is supported as well, but there are no CV ports on this keyboard. And there's the 3-digit 7-segment LCD again, which shows encoder values, MIDI channels and everything numerical. Of course, folding the keyboard will let you carry this around in a backpack, which clearly isn't possible unfolded. Both halves of the keyboard snap together with magnets. This keyboard unfolds lengthwise to 78 cm or 31 inches and then exposes its 49 keys keypad, a touchpad that acts both as a mod wheel and a pitch bend wheel, 2 assignable encoders and 6 buttons that can be used for setting up the arpeggiator and as a play-stop record button for your sequencer. Holding the Shift key will let you access secondary functions on the 2 encoders for setting up the arpeggiator. Holding Shift while pressing the labeled keys on the keyboard lets you access further functions like latch and MIDI channel selection. The keys have a very narrow travel space, but they're comfortable to play and they don't move left or right, so they don't rub against each other. It's easy to play expressive and playing fast should be no problem as well. Here I'm playing the virtual analog synth on my Microdex Groovebox using the arpeggiator of the Blackstar keyboard. Using an adapter, I can connect the sustain pedal and play the electric piano. The 49 is a good controller, but its hinges give me anxiety. These are made from metal, but I guess you have to be very careful to avoid shearing motions while unfolding the keyboard, otherwise you'll most likely break something. Once the keyboard is unfolded, everything's relatively safe and secure, and the two halves won't budge. It's not a keyboard I'd recommend to synthesists and electronic musicians, but rather to composers and piano players who want to record their playing into a sequencer. Street price is from $80 to $125, which I'd say is a perfectly okay price for a 49 keys keyboard of this quality. Just be careful with those hinges though. And finally, this is the Digital Wind Instrument 2 Pro. If you hear about electronic wind instruments for the first time, imagine a recorder but all the sound is made by a synthesizer. This particular instrument here has 65 built-in sounds which cover all the popular favorites like saxophones, flutes, reed instruments, harmonicas, traditional Chinese instruments and synthesizer sounds. The sounds are based on recordings of real instruments, but there's a synthesizer modulating the sounds as you play, changing the tone, volume, vibrato and other things in real time. Thanks to its USB Type-C and MIDI TRS ports, you can easily connect this to computers or synthesizers to control other sound sources. And with a built-in Bluetooth MIDI interface, you can connect wirelessly to any Bluetooth-capable instrument or Apple and Android phones. The audio out plug ensures you can connect headphones or recording devices, but you also can use the built-in speaker to hear yourself playing. The speaker isn't that big and it doesn't sound that big, but it certainly is nice to have. The internal battery can run this instrument for around 3 hours before you need to recharge. The instrument comes with 2 exchangeable silicone mouthpieces, so you can swap it hygienically. There's a hook for the included neck strap as well, so holding the instrument for longer periods of time doesn't become strenuous. This is one of the few instruments I've reviewed so far that come with actual pressable keys instead of touch buttons. These work quite well, and I never fail to play a note because of the keys. But if you've used touch keys only beforehand, this takes a while getting used to. Besides the keys for playing notes, there's also a glide button, octave switching buttons and a joystick that can be configured in the menu, for example to act as a modulation controller or an instrument selector. The instrument can be configured with 8 menu buttons and a tiny LCD. Here you can set up the instrument's sensitivity, reverb, fingering style, Bluetooth, tuning and other things. The build quality overall is good. Nothing is moving or twisting or bending when it shouldn't. The sounds are good as well, though not as good as specialized computer plugins like the SWAM modeling instruments, for example. But those are almost as expensive as this instrument though. One thing that's noteworthy is that this instrument does not add a vibrato to the sound if you don't actually want to play one. One thing I have to mention is that the audio output on the headphone jack is quite noisy, as you can hear in the examples I've recorded. Other than that, this is a good wind controller with very usable sounds that respond to your playing expressively and precisely. Yep, and that's it for today. The carry-on line of foldable and portable MIDI instruments. All in all, the 25 keys keyboard was my favorite here. I can clearly see myself using that in the future. The other two instruments are good, but they're probably not aimed at synthesizer enthusiasts like we are. And in case of the 49 keys keyboard, that one has to be handled with care. So if you think this was an interesting YouTube video, please do the YouTube thing. As always, thanks for watching and see you again very soon. Bye bye!